Hello and welcome to another episode of the e-commerce coffee break. Today we want to talk about why Shopify apps can and do kill your page speed and what you can do about that. Therefore, I have an expert on the show today. It's William Belk. He is an app developer and software and product designer. He's focusing on building high-performance software and products that work, web performance optimization, and also rethinking people and process systems using lean principles. He helps with Shopify projects, web performance optimization, SEO strategy, and improvement for Google search and lean process improvement. So he has a vast experience when it comes to Shopify, and we want to dive a little bit deeper into this topic to see how this can help you improving your page speed. So let's welcome William to the show. Hi, William. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
William, give me a bit of background. Why is page speed so important?
Well, the number one reason is because of the customers, right? We want customers to have a better experience. And we get lost a lot in the page speed discussion about conversion, bounce rate. We can talk about cost of ad spend, which is a huge one. We get into kind of hard to pin down SEO discussions, right? SEO improvement. But the first one is just customer experience. So the more we satisfy our customers, the more we sell, and the happier people are, the more they come back. So we can talk about returning customers as it relates to page speed, but number one is customer satisfaction and, brand stickiness, right? Brand engagement. That's number one, right?
Okay.
And then beyond, so go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say beyond that, then we can move on to the technical discussions and the nuanced discussions about, how page speed affects performance, like aggregate brand performance, right? Conversion optimization, ad landing page quality score, SEO rank, all the different things. But the first one is make our customers happier, right?
Okay. So you already touched on a couple of things, and that gives the listeners an impression that page speed optimization is just not a simple thing. There's a lot of moving parts involved that all sort of contribute or basically negative can impact your page speed. Now with Shopify has just upgraded a year, 1.5 years ago to OS 2.0, online shopping 2.0. And I think things have gone better, but I think there's also a lot of things that haven't got better. So tell me a little bit on what's happening within Shopify when it comes to page speed.
Sure. So if we circle back a little bit to where you started, which is, saying that apps can destroy your page speed on Shopify in general, right? So you see that a lot. So I have a product that I just released, a free page testing tool called Page Doctor. And then I saw that you ran your WordPress site through there. And then I'm sure you saw in the read up that WordPress plugins start to install all kinds of blocking script tags and all kinds of CSS modules, right? And so Shopify is similar in that way, where a lot of the apps that we install, so a saying that I have is you're only as fast as your slowest app on Shopify. So the way that the apps inject code into your site can really cause problems for your page speed performance. So Shopify, you mentioned Shopify 2.0. So Shopify 2.0 effectively means use of app blocks and widgets in the online store customizer. And so the old method that apps, and this is still available to apps, and this is kind of the problem. So the old method is Shopify will load your entire page, and then at the end of the page, they have a function. It's called async load. And then once your entire page contents are loaded, then Shopify will open the door to all of your apps to inject JavaScript tags and CSS into your page. Generally starts with JavaScript requests. So a lot of times, if you look at your source, you'll see this async load function that has an array of JavaScript tags associated with all of your apps. So let's say you have 15 or 20 apps. With the flip of a switch, it's literally like Shopify pulling down a gate and allowing 10 to 20 requests to fire. And then those requests might all fire 10, 20 additional requests. So you could have something like 50 requests going like that right at the end of your page load. And that's why we see with Google PageSpeed Insights, we see this long, the measure in Google PageSpeed Insights that we look at is time to interactive. So you have your page load, it looks super fast, and then you have this massive like stampede of asynchronous requests in the background. That all takes browser resources, right? So a good example would be something like, let's say two popular apps that we would talk about would be like Klaviyo. So they have their JavaScript like bundle. I forget what it's called, but that one is usually quite big, and that'll be, it could be 5 to 10 requests depending on how your modules are set up, or something like Yotpo. So if you watch Yotpo's installation, it could be 20 to 30 requests that are spawned after your page load. And this is something really hard to explain. And I'm trying to find better ways to talk about it, but I want the store owners to put more pressure on the app developers to do better, right? Because this is like a massive, massive problem. Or we look at fraud apps like Signified or something like that. Again, 15, 20 requests that are spanned out across 3 to 4 seconds. And we don't feel like it affects the page load, like the core page load, but then every action that the user tries to take while these things are spawning up in the background, you're competing with the browser for resources. So every script tag that you load, if you click something the second, this is kind of a conceptual case, right? But if you click something while the browser is loading a script tag or loading CSS file, the browser will not do anything until it's done with the script, loading the script tag, right? So then you're constantly in this battle for resources. So like the numbers that we look at in terms of bringing down like the total cognitive load of the browser would be like number of requests, right? So if we have 300 or 400 requests, even if we're only loading 1 megabyte, each one of those requests has to be processed by the browser. So then we see like our page load, and then in the background, we have 80 requests going like this in and out of the browser. So then the browser's brain is like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to prioritize this. And then everything that even a scroll, like something as simple as a scroll, if you have all of these apps installed that are making 10, 20 requests in the background, then your scroll will be all jumpy. You could have like some 10 millisecond wait time for this or that, or, something might not even be initialized, so it doesn't even work. So like, okay, I want to click to the next frame on the slider on the homepage. Well, if there's 100 things happening in the background, then your slider is going to be like all jumpy like that. All these small things. And then you move from there to all of the actual costs to your business from having this type of setup can be huge, right? So, and that's kind of the trickle down. So then what I encourage people to start at, where I encourage people to start in terms of evaluating the page speed is 2 things. One is look at your theme. So your theme could be set up in a way that's just disastrous to your page speed. So like, especially if your theme's a few years old. So you could say, you see a lot of old themes that have like fade in and fade out effects. So the page will load, you have all these assets that are loaded, and then maybe 600 milliseconds. So 600 milliseconds would be 0.6 seconds. So half a second. And then everything fades in really nice. It may look nice, but it's not good. It's really, really slow. So then you've lost an entire half a second to showing people information about your products, and then that's like, it's pretty devastating over the long term if you're getting a lot of traffic or if you're buying a lot of ads, right? So that's the first place, is look at your theme, and then talk to your developer. Listen to your developer, right? So a lot of brand owners, they'll say, okay, I want this fade, or I want this type of effect. And then the developer will say, hey, that's going to hurt the page speed. And then the brand owner will say, well, I don't care. I want it that way. A lot of brand owners, they get an emotional attachment to like a certain type of feature. And then the developer eventually, like, I've been writing code my whole life, and I'm at the point in my career now where I just quit. I make the recommendation one time, and then they say, yeah, but okay, cool. We'll do it your way. And then I don't think that's that's not going to cut it moving forward as our brands get bigger. So, if we're a $200,000 brand, maybe it doesn't matter. If we're a $5 million brand, it matters. If we're a $20 million brand and we're starting to buy tons and tons of traffic, all these small little things really, really matter. And then we want to pursue excellence, right? And then we want to work with these people who are encouraging us, challenging us, right? Okay, we want to get better and get faster and all these things. So that's kind of the theme part. And then the app part is the second step, where we look at all the apps that we've installed, and specifically for Shopify, or like I mentioned, WordPress. I haven't worked with WordPress in a long time. But just through Page Doctor, which is at pagedoctor.com, through that, I see all these WordPress tests, and it's a disaster. It's just a disaster. And that's all from the WordPress plugin ecosystem. And then we have the exact same type of system with Shopify, where if you look how many apps we have installed, like I said, again, you're only as fast as your slowest app. So then when you run it through Google PageSpeed Insights or Page Doctor or these different tools, you'll see that the things that are killing us are, one, our theme, and then all the apps. All the apps are, throwing all these things in the background and doing all these things. So then we want to go through and prune all these apps. And then a lot of apps, another good example would be like Shopify's product reviews app. So one of their external library dependencies is jQuery. So they will load another jQuery on your page. So if you don't have the right version that they want, then they'll load another one. And then if you install Shopify's product reviews app and don't use it, so let's say you're just evaluating it, they'll still inject their payload on your page. So a lot of merchants or store owners, they have all these apps installed, and they don't even realize that they're getting stuff injected into their page, onto their page in the background, because they've given the app access to that kind of hook or that door. And then, like you'll have, let's say you're evaluating product reviews apps, you have 3 or 4 apps installed. You may have 3 or 4 100K payloads of 40 requests, maybe 50, 100 requests in the background just to evaluate these apps, And these are the kind of things where people get in these holes where, oh, my page is so slow, all these things are happening. Well, Shopify is so great in that we're all used to one-click everything, right? Okay, cool. I want, what would be a good example? I want a newsletter overlay, and I want to be able to like text message someone and email them. Okay, cool. Click a button, go into the admin, add my overlay. Okay, you just slowed down your page by 3 seconds. You solved one problem, and then you've inherited another one, which is fine, but I think back to my comment about working with our developers understand this, and our developers are tired or discouraged and demoralized of saying it over and over again. Hey, this is killing our page speed, right? And then we get in this as store owners, right? We're so spoiled. Like you can run a $10 million store on Shopify for like $80 a month. And then the developer's like, oh, cool. Hey, I want to work on page speed. It's going to take 20 hours. And then the store owner freaks out and they're like, oh my God, that's whatever, $3,000 or $4,000. Well, you're making $10 million. Like you have to start working on it, and then evaluating every single decision. And I think rethinking, like what we talked about, every time we solve a problem, if we inherit or we make another problem a little bit worse, we have to have a kind of a mental framework for thinking about that, right?
100%. I think you gave a lot of information there that a lot of store owners potentially will not know. And a lot of store owners, specifically small and medium businesses, solopreneurs, they go for the feature. And there's a bit of shiny object syndrome. They won't have all the features. And I see stores on a daily basis, they have load times of 10, 12, 15, 20 seconds and more. And I can tell them, it's like, yeah, no one will wait for your product page to load, even if you have all these features in there. Now, process can be very complex, and pagedoctor.com definitely helps in finding out where the whole machine is getting slowed down. And what's the next step? Do you just get rid of all the apps, or do you bring them in the right order? Do you have to have a web developer from scratch once? So what can a store owner do to get the optimization process into gear?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Where do I start here? So one of the reasons that I built Page Doctor is that I was tired. I was becoming fatigued doing my own just first pass analysis. So Google PageSpeed Insights is really, really great product, but for me personally, it doesn't give me the first pass information, the highest priority first pass information that I want, the way that I want it, and most efficiently, right? So that's why I built Page Doctor. So most of the problems that people have with page speed is like a 101 foundational issue, right? So like you have too many blocking script tags. And so what a blocking script tag means, you load a script for either a library or an app component. And then the way that that's loaded, the browser has to stop everything it's doing to load it into memory and make it available. And then the same with CSS. So the first step is look at blocking requests. So when you, let's see here, a good example would be like Google Tag Manager. Okay. So if you added Google Tag Manager or some sort of like script like that, if you forget to add the async attribute or defer attribute, then you're telling the browser, okay, stop everything. This is the most important thing. The rest of the page can't function unless this JavaScript is loaded. You know, so just look at that foundational stuff. So I start there, and a lot of that is connected to the theme. So sometimes the theme has hard-coded ways of adding scripts or hooks for tag manager, these things. And it's just one little oversight from the theme developer. So we just start there. And then after we get there, we can start to go into apps, apps and like more of the technical stuff. So are we using jQuery? Is jQuery a requirement for our theme to load? And that's a big killer too. So if all of our theme animations like fade in or, scroll functions or carousels or those things require jQuery, then nothing can happen on that page until jQuery is loaded. So if jQuery is getting loaded from a CDN, I see that a lot, is if we load jQuery from a CDN, it's a big risk. I don't care what CDN network it is. I don't care if it's Cloudflare or what's the other big CDN host? Anyway, when you install jQuery, it's like they give you that URL, or sometimes there's the Google CDN URL. I don't trust any of them. Any foundational requirement, or excuse me, any request that you really need to be on the page before your page loads, you should load it from the file system. Because every network request now, you see what's happening out there is that the networks are just getting exploded with like attacks, just regular latency. So let's say you're in a neighborhood and okay, I have Fios. Well, what if my neighbor is downloading like 8 seasons of Game of Thrones right now, right? So then my jQuery request that needs to go through in order for my whole entire page to be loaded is now competing with my neighbor's Game of Thrones 8-season, 8-gigabyte download, right? So then every single request that goes out is a big, big risk. And it's not such a big deal for these things that are not super important. But I like, especially as it relates to Shopify, we already have a connection going with Shopify's servers. So then just load it from the file system there and don't rely on Google or Cloudflare or Fastly or whoever, you can see where these things are coming from. So even some of your apps, you can say, okay, one of my apps is pretty slow. Then I'll just copy the contents of their script tag and put it in the file system. That's like, then you start to get into, this is stuff you should just talk to your developer about, right? Because it's case by case, so then like the first thing would be go in and prune all your apps, delete everything you're not using. Like that would be a good first step. And then talk to your developer and invest more resources in page speed improvement. Right. And that's again, to circle back to what we were talking about before, we're so spoiled and we're so used to paying $20 a month for something that used to cost $80,000 a year that a lot of the brand owners they get stuck in their own hole, right? So then they're like, they ask the agency they're working with or the SEO person that they're working with or their developer, like, why is this so slow? How much is it going to cost to fix? And then they don't want to know that to be elite, it costs money. And we need to work and work and work and pursue excellence. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot the last few weeks is I'm pretty curious, kind of naturally. And then when I don't know something, it like burns and it hurts me, right? And then, I end up in all these rabbit holes. And this is the blessing and a curse, right? So in some respects, that kind of approach is good, but it's not always productive, right? But the thing that I was thinking about is we want to keep pursuing excellence, right? And we're never right. We're always just trying to do better and better. But the thing that I think is lost on a lot of operational people in e-commerce is that this is not going to be your last job, right? So if you have access to an agency or a developer, even if the people are opinionated, you want to be with these people who are trying to pursue excellence and get better. So if they say, hey, let's look at this area of the site and make it better, we might learn something that when we start our own brand or our next business, then that'll set us up for even more success. Because you've been in the e-commerce industry a long time. I've been in the software industry for 20 years, and the number of failures I have, either directly related to like my initiatives or working with other people, is just countless, So then the thing that's really kept me inspired and excited about what I do is just this continual learning, and like, it's the pursuit of excellence. You never hit it, you never gain it, but then everything is moving so quickly in all the different directions, right? If we take 1 year off, like, oh, I'm just going to be, a middle manager and, click all the, no disrespect to anyone, but, if I want to take a year off and focus on management or product, right? Without getting in the weeds and trying to really pursue all these things and keep learning, everything 1 year is like dog years in software, right? Even, we mentioned this Page Doctor tool that I built. Even doing that, I'm like, oh, I know so much about page speed and images and all these things, right? And then I build an app. I'm like, oh man, I forgot about that. Or I was totally wrong. I assumed this and I had this logged in my brain from 4 years ago. And that needs to be updated big time, and keep going. So, part of it is just like the pursuit of excellence and working with the people that we have around us that are maybe, especially when we work with developers, some days working with them is pretty tough because they're like some of them are pretty quirky and really focused on stuff that we think as like a store owner or brand owner, like, why do I need to care about that? And then part of building that relationship is like, oh, well, maybe he's saying or she's saying something that I didn't really consider. Like a good example would be the effect of page speed on ad spend. That's something I almost never hear about. And the second that I say that to someone who spends $100,000 a month on ads, they're like, oh, yes, like I get it. And just that connection. So if you can make that connection with people, and you say, okay, now go back to your developer and talk to them about how you can reduce your ad spend and how that is related to your page speed and bounce rate and number of pages per session. And then now you guys are best buddies, right? You're best friends. Last week, you thought that your developer was like, I don't know, some sort of like spectrum adjacent crazy person who doesn't have their like priorities in line. And then this week, you see that person is, oh, wow, that person can actually teach me something, because now it connects to something that I really want to optimize, at the big level, the brand level, right?
No, very good comparison there. And there's a reason why big companies like Amazon have a whole fleet of developers only looking into page speed and optimizing all the time. And Amazon is probably not the most visual appealing website out there, but there's a reason. And I always say, don't do slideshows, don't do animations. It just usually does not add anything to the user experience. It just hurts you. And the comparison that you just did, and I think I like that a lot, it was like, just look what you spent on Meta or Facebook ads, on Google ads, and then losing people because your site is too slow. And all of a sudden you optimize that and your ad spend will go far further than before, is a really good argument on looking into it. Now, a technical question from my side is, all the apps are getting updated all the time. So what happens if you do the optimization process with your web developer, for instance, with you go through the whole process, everything is updated, and now the app developer comes out with a new version. Does that kill everything and you start from scratch, or is there ways around to prevent that?
Generally speaking, as it relates to Shopify, so if we start, again, I'll touch on WordPress just because I know a lot of people still use WordPress. If we touch on WordPress, WordPress has one of the most devastating plugin ecosystems. So it's very common there where if you update your version of WordPress or you update your apps, then it just eats itself. So that could be 20 hours of trying to figure out, versioning and all the PHP things for plugins on WordPress. So Shopify is quite different in the sense that almost everything that's running for Shopify is client side. So you can, how do I say this? So you can generally assume that as long as it's working, it's the same. So like my apps, as an example, so we mentioned before, so I have 5 apps in the Shopify App Store. One of my newest app is called Rapid Reviews, which is the fastest product reviews app by far, not even close. So it only loads 12K to the page with just a single request. So my whole entire app bundle is just one file. And there might be weeks where I update that bundle 5 times in a week, just with optimizations, or I might add a small feature or something like that. And the customer never even knows it. So as long as, and this doesn't always happen, but as long as I don't make a mistake, no one notices anything. But, sometimes I make a mistake, and that's kind of the nature of software. But in general, I can update my app bundles without anyone ever seeing it, right? And then so there may be 400 versions of my bundle over time, and then they don't even know. So I think that's not such a big concern as it relates to Shopify, I think, or Shopify apps specifically. The one place I've seen that where maybe a concern is themes. So you can see theme updates. So a lot of that's the ecosystem for themes is quite tough. So in the sense that you can buy a theme for, let's say you buy a great theme for $200, and then you say, oh, it doesn't do this. So then you have a developer help you. They add code to the theme, then the theme gets updated, and then the theme goes in and updates files that you didn't expect and all those things. That's kind of a separate issue that you have to, this is part of the game, unfortunately, but you just have to work with your developer. So yeah, that specifically, I'm not so worried about that part of it. Yeah.
Okay. Before we come to the end of our coffee break chat, is my question on, if you, I think we have convinced everyone, look into speed of your Shopify store by now. Like, how do you approach it? What would be a logical step-by-step process to, it's like, okay, I want to find out, and then I want to approach someone like you, for instance, to help me with optimizing that. So what kind of homework should a Shopify merchant do there?
Yeah. So the first thing that you could do is, so one is you could use a tool to give you your baseline understanding of your performance. So you could use something like Google PageSpeed Insights, which it's a great tool. It has a lot of information, and it's a little bit probably targeted towards like the more technical person. Or you could use something like pagedoctor.com. which I just released. And that's more of a lower level analysis, kind of a first pass analysis. And that'll get you a collection of insights into some of the issues with your page, right? And then the next step is work with your developer, right? Invest in development relationship. So if, sorry, I'm trying to figure out a way to say this that is the nicest way possible. So a lot of store owners are using places like Fiverr to find developers, right? And that can be okay, but just because you can get something done on Fiverr for $30, I would consider the fact that you may not be building a long-term relationship with a single person, right? So if you buy something on Fiverr, you get it done for $30, you have, a lot of times you have no idea who did it. So you may be working with some sort of broker. So someone will set up a Fiverr account and then you'll send them something and then it'll get done. And, you know, it may have gone to another pool of developers who are all chipping in to get this work done, right? So invest in a relationship with a developer that you can access one-to-one. And then as it relates to that, start looking at that as a long-term investment, right? So stop getting spoiled because everything's one click in Shopify and say, oh, well, okay, I'll just reach out to the app developer and they'll do it. And it's like, well, you know, that's not really fair to the app developers and it doesn't build you a long-term relationship. So a lot of my app customers for my Shopify apps, they're in that cohort of people who are very used to being like one clicked, right? Or they give access to their store to these people they don't know. And most of the, in terms of the quality of code and the strategy of work that I see coming out of these like very cheap, let's see, like marketplaces or outlets like Fiverr, if you're really trying to be the best and do the best, I don't think it's worth it, you know? And like I said, again, you know, if you're not making much money on your Shopify store, that makes a lot of sense. If you're making, you know, whatever, $300,000, 400,000, 5 million, 10 million, you know, start to carve off more of your budget to build relationships with developers you trust, right? And then if you're, let's say you're using an agency, a lot of Shopify stores will use a development agency partner. I think a lot of the consulting that I've done in the last, let's say 8 years related to Shopify is almost exactly the same profile. It's brand, paid agency, whatever it is, $100,000, $400,000, $600,000. And then 12 or 14 or 16 months later, like site is broken. Not broken in the completely non-functional sense, but okay, you know, page speed's horrible, all kinds of animations, all kinds of like, a lot of them, they're just quite clever from like a UI perspective, but just not fully functional. And so most of the consulting that I've done is someone has overpaid massively for agency work and they haven't built a relationship, the technical relationship over time in terms of like the end product. So they may get what they want. Like you said, they may have like their 19 slideshows on their homepage and then they have their like 9 MP4 videos and no one told them that those have to be loaded 100% before they play. And then, you know, those types of things that it's hard to know unless you have a partner you really trust. And then, so I think it's a good idea to reach out to your network and audit the product that you have. So no matter how much you spend, right? Like, I don't care if you paid an agency $1 million. If you have a developer in your network that you trust, I think it's worth having them come in and give you an assessment of what's going on with your store, right? And then that can even be 1 hour of time. And a lot of Shopify store owners, I think that would be a good place to start, of saying like, okay, I'm going to put aside something small. I'm going to put aside $400 of my budget to ask someone technical that I trust to come in and give me an assessment on my site. And then start to build those relationships, development relationships moving forward, right? As opposed to, again, I come back to this agency or marketplace. The marketplace thing is a phenomenon. The agency thing is kind of a traditional, I have a problem as a brand, and then it's all sales, right? So, I'm trying to help sell my dad's house. And every real estate agent that comes in is just like, oh my God, Mr. Belk, your house is so amazing. You did all this work by yourself. Look at all of this tile. So my dad loves to tile. Okay. I mean, loves to tile. He'll tile anything. And we have half of the real estate agents saying, oh, Mr. Belk, this is the most amazing tile I've ever seen. And then we have the other half saying, oh, okay. Yeah, look at that. Okay, here's what we need to focus on, right? And so in the same way we're building up our resources for, our Shopify ecosystem or our Shopify program, we have one set of people generally, maybe on the marketing or the sales agency side, telling us that all of our problems are going to be solved. And then we have a couple of other quirky kind of technical people saying, no. We want to obviously blend those. I'm guilty of this all the time, right? I'm more technical. A lot of times I don't speak in a way that is, I could speak much better to people who are non-technical and help bridge that gap, but I think it's also on the side of the store owner. It's really good to keep these things in mind. And a lot of the non-technical people get frustrated with the technical people and quit, and vice versa. And then the technical people get frustrated with the non-technical people. And then we have this big chasm between what our goal is and then all the back and forth and the thrashing in order to get to our goal, right? And then so we kind of want to try to build those relationships in an efficient way and an effective way moving forward, and then that's kind of the real way to get progress over time and pursue excellence, right?
No, makes perfect sense, and I completely can relate to the scenario that you gave. There is the agency where obviously a sales process is going on, and lots of the time they're focused on features and design and so on and so forth. And then there's the technical aspect where the client never ever gets through to it. And maybe just a remark from my side, being a long time in this business and having done also hundreds and hundreds of projects, is not every developer is focused on page speed. The software universe is very, very wide, so you need to find the right person there. Now, where can people find out more about you, William?
The easiest way is to go to williambelk.com, and then all my apps are listed there. You can go to Shopify App Store, and you can look up Rapid Reviews is my newest app. So it's a product reviews app. Very proud of that. And you can find me on Medium. So medium.com @WBelk. I do quite a bit of writing related to, these days, I mostly just write about what I get an itch about. Previously, I wrote a lot about cultural improvement, agile, lean, did quite a bit of stuff in the crypto space for a while. So wrote quite a bit about that, but more on the geopolitical stuff related to crypto. Yeah. But as it relates to my apps, williambelk.com. the best place. Yeah. And then I'd encourage everyone to look at pagedoctor.com. It's a free tool. It's not perfect. I'm still making improvements to it. So anybody that would like to use it, if you could send me feedback about it or tell me what it's missing for you, that would be really helpful for me. And then I think it could help out a lot of people, just to make a first pass, like drastic improvement to a lot of different stores. Yeah.
Cool. I will put the links in the show notes as always, then you're just one click away. William, thanks so much. I think that was a great overview why Shopify apps can kill your store and why it is important to have somebody professional by your side to improve your store. Thanks so much for your time and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Klaus here. Before you go, I would like to invite you to become part of the e-commerce merchant pro community to get actionable advice from other Shopify merchants who already have achieved what you are aiming for. Our community is a safe place to actively grow your online retail business with the support of the most amazing and helpful group of e-commerce entrepreneurs behind you. Running a Shopify business is tough. Don't do it alone. Join us now. You will find the link in the show notes. Also, if you think your online store has conversion or marketing issues and you would like to have a fresh set of eyes on your business, then drop me an email at klaus@klauslauter.com and let me know a little bit about your business. It might be beneficial for you to have me look over your store, offers, emails, and ads and get an unbiased outside perspective and guidance to help you make most of your online business. Thank you as always for tuning in today. I appreciate you. Until next time, and I talk to you soon.